They left her to burn in shame, but he saw the fire and chose to save her heart. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Have you ever felt that kind of emptiness, where nothing seems to fill the void inside you? Imagine being left to face your darkest moments, alone, only to find someone who sees you in a way no one ever has. Well, that's exactly what happened to her. Let's see how it all unfolded. The next morning, Emma couldn't shake the feeling of embarrassment that had settled deep in her chest. She had run away from the restaurant without even looking back at the man she had mistakenly thought was Kevin. Her face still burned from the awkwardness of it all. She tried to focus on the rest of her day, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face. The confusion in his eyes as she bolted from the table. Why had she been so quick to assume? Why hadn't she given him a chance to explain? Emma ran a hand through her hair, trying to focus on the tasks in front of her, but it wasn't working. The truth was, she couldn't stop thinking about him. She tried to distract herself with the usual morning routine, but the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. She didn't know why, but she wanted to see him again. Maybe it was just curiosity, or maybe it was something more. She had no idea. But as the day dragged on, she found herself checking her phone every few minutes, waiting for a message from Jenny. Maybe she would have some advice, some comforting words. Nothing. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat. It was from him. Asterisk. Hi, Emma. This is Liam. I was the guy you sat next to at the restaurant last night. I know it was a mix-up, but I wanted to reach out and ask if you'd like to have coffee sometime. No pressure. Just wanted to apologize for the confusion. Let me know if you're interested. Asterisk. Emma stared at the message, her fingers trembling. She reread it 3 times, each time hoping it would make more sense. It didn't. He wanted to see her again? After she'd run out on him? It didn't seem real. She felt like she should ignore it, to just forget about the whole thing. But something in her couldn't let it go. Maybe it was his kindness. Or maybe it was because she had already felt a connection with him, even if it had been brief. The thought of meeting him again made her feel anxious, but also strangely hopeful. With a sigh, she typed out a reply. Asterisk. Hi, Liam. I don't know what to say. I feel really embarrassed about last night. I thought you were someone else, and I just left without explaining. But I'd like to meet for coffee. Let's see where things go. Asterisk. She hesitated before hitting send, wondering if she was making a mistake. But it was too late to take it back now. She pressed the send button, and then put the phone down, her heart racing. The moment she sent the message, she realized she was looking forward to seeing him again. She didn't know what would happen, but she was willing to take the chance. Later that day, they met at a small, cozy cafe on the corner of the street. The place was quiet, almost empty, with only a few other people scattered around. Liam was already sitting at a table by the window when Emma walked in. He looked up as she entered, a warm smile spreading across his face. He was dressed casually, nothing like the sharp suit he'd worn the night before, but something about him seemed even more approachable now. Emma felt a little nervous as she approached the table, but his smile immediately put her at ease. Hi, she said, her voice soft. Hi, Emma, Liam replied, standing up to pull out a chair for her. I'm really glad you came. Emma sat down, still feeling the weight of last night on her shoulders, but also relieved to see him again. They both ordered coffee, and as they waited, they started talking. Emma found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't expected. She told him about her life, the challenges she faced working as a waitress, her dreams of opening an art studio someday. Liam listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face. He seemed genuinely interested, which made Emma feel more comfortable. I think it's amazing that you want to open your own studio, he said, his voice thoughtful. Not many people have the courage to go after their dreams, especially when things are tough. Emma smiled, feeling a little embarrassed by the compliment. It's just a dream right now, she said, looking down at her coffee cup. But one day, I'll make it happen. I have to. Liam leaned back in his chair, looking at her with admiration. I believe you'll get there, he said softly. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Emma met his gaze, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen. It wasn't just because of his words, but because he was willing to listen. It was a small thing, but it meant more to her than she could explain. The conversation flowed easily from there, and before long, they were laughing together, sharing stories about their lives. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emma forgot about the awkwardness of the past and just enjoyed being in the moment. When they finished their coffee, Liam stood up and offered to walk her home. As they walked together, the world around them seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, walking side by side, both of them feeling like something new was beginning. As they reached the corner, Liam turned to her with a smile. I'm really glad we did this, he said. Me too, Emma replied, her heart beating a little faster. Maybe we could do it again sometime? Liam asked, his voice hopeful. Emma smiled. I'd like that. And as she walked home that night, she couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind for Emma. Everything was changing, and she couldn't quite keep up. After her coffee date with Liam, she felt like a part of her. One she had locked away for so long had finally woken up. She had spent so many years hiding behind the walls of her insecurities, convincing herself that she didn't belong in the world of opportunity, of wealth, or even love. But Liam had seen her, truly seen her, and for the first time, she wasn't sure where that would lead. She went to work the next day as usual, but it felt different. There was something about the way people looked at her, the way she held herself, that felt new. Maybe it was the smile that seemed to linger longer on her lips, or the way she walked a little taller than before. Even the clatter of plates and the buzz of the busy restaurant felt less overwhelming. She couldn't explain it, but she couldn't deny the shift within her either. It had been a week since the coffee, and Liam had kept his word. He hadn't disappeared like she feared. They had texted back and forth, exchanged stories about their lives, and met for coffee again, and then another dinner. Each time, Emma felt a little more at ease with him, and a little more connected to herself. But there was still something she couldn't shake, a quiet doubt lingering in the back of her mind, reminding her that everything was too good to be true. The people in her life, especially Jenny, kept telling her that she deserved better, that maybe Liam was a chance she shouldn't let slip by. And yet, despite the fact that they'd spent so much time together, there were still pieces of Liam that remained hidden. He had never fully opened up to her about his life, his past, or the secrets he carried. She didn't want to push him, not when everything between them felt so delicate. But the questions kept gnawing at her. One night, after a particularly lovely dinner at a little Italian place downtown, Emma sat in the back of the cab, staring out the window, trying to clear her mind. Liam had been perfect that evening, kind and thoughtful as always, but something in his eyes, something in the way he held himself, made her wonder. They had parted with a warm hug, but as she sat alone in the back of the cab, she felt a pang of loneliness that didn't make sense. Maybe it was just her fear of the unknown, of letting someone get too close and trusting them with parts of herself she wasn't ready to share. When she got home, she tossed her bag on the couch and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. The cool night air filtered through the window, but it did little to soothe the unease in her chest. Was she ready to open herself up to someone else again? Was she ready to trust someone with her heart? Just as she was about to sit down, her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, expecting a text from Jenny or a work email. But instead, it was a message from Liam. Asterisk. Hey Emma, I know we've been spending a lot of time together lately, and I don't want to rush anything. but I feel like there's something between us. Something real. I want to be honest with you, and I don't want to hide things from you anymore. Can we talk tomorrow? Asterisk. Her heart skipped a beat. He wanted to talk? About what? What had he been hiding? Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure if she should reply right away. What if it was something bad? What if it was the moment he decided to pull away from her, to end whatever it was that had been blossoming between them? She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then typed back, asterisk. Of course! I'd love to talk. I'll see you tomorrow. Asterisk. As soon as she hit send, she felt a strange calm wash over her. Maybe it was because she finally understood that whatever happened next, she could handle it. She could face the truth, no matter what it was. The next evening, they met at the same cafe where they had first reconnected. The moment Emma walked in, she saw Liam sitting at a table by the window, his face unreadable. He looked up as she entered and gave her a tight smile, standing to greet her. Hey, Emma, he said softly, his voice a little more serious than usual. Emma smiled back, but the weight of the moment hung between them. She took a seat, and they both sat in silence for a few seconds. Finally, Liam spoke again, his eyes meeting hers. I've been thinking a lot about us. About everything we've shared, he said, his voice steady, but soft. And there's something I need to tell you. Emma's heart raced. She felt like she might already know what was coming, but she didn't want to jump to conclusions. I'm listening, she said, trying to keep her voice calm, though she could feel the butterflies in her stomach. Liam hesitated for a moment, running his hand through his hair. I'm not who you think I am, he said quietly, his gaze dropping to the table. I've been hiding things from you, not because I wanted to lie, but because I wasn't sure how to tell you. I didn't want to scare you away. Emma's chest tightened, and for a moment, she felt the ground beneath her shift. What was he saying? What had he been hiding? She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Liam looked up, his eyes sincere. I'm Liam Parker, the CEO of Parker Enterprises, the tech company. I'm not just some guy who works in tech. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you that I'm not living a normal life like most people. I've been holding back, and I didn't want to overwhelm you. The words hit her like a wave. The Liam she had been spending time with, the quiet, kind man who made her laugh, who shared his dreams with her, was a CEO, a tech millionaire. She stared at him, her mind racing. She didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process what he had just confessed. I never wanted to hide that from you, Liam continued, his voice full of regret. But I couldn't help but wonder if you'd like me, the real me, or just the idea of me. I don't want to lose what we've started. Emma sat there in stunned silence, her heart beating wildly in her chest. This was the moment when everything she had been feeling, all the doubts and insecurities, would either shatter or come together. She looked at Liam, really looked at him, and realized something. This wasn't about his wealth or his title. It was about the way he made her feel, the way he saw her. And for the first time, Emma realized that the truth wasn't something to be afraid of. It was something to embrace. Emma sat there, staring at Liam, her mind racing as the words he had just spoken echoed in her ears. He was a CEO, a tech millionaire. The person she had been casually meeting for the past few weeks was someone completely different from what she had imagined. She had assumed he was just a normal guy, someone who understood her struggles, someone who didn't care about labels or wealth. But now, the truth was out, and it felt like everything had shifted in an instant. She didn't know what to feel or what to say. Her heart pounded in her chest, the weight of the revelation hanging in the air between them. Liam, noticing her silence, took a step back, his expression tense with uncertainty. I know this is a lot to take in, he said softly, his voice full of vulnerability. But I wanted to be honest with you. I didn't want to hide who I really am any longer. I didn't want you to think I was just pretending to be someone I'm not. Emma swallowed hard, trying to process everything. She had spent so many years hiding parts of herself, trying to fit in, to prove that she was worthy of something more than what she had. And now here she was, in front of someone who had everything: the money, the status, the life she had always dreamed of. But why did it feel like something was still missing? Why did it feel like the ground beneath her feet was slipping away? She looked up at Liam, her eyes searching his face for any sign that he was the same person she had gotten to know. He looked just like the man who had listened to her dreams, who had held her hand after their coffee date, who had made her feel like she mattered. "You're still you," she finally whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Right? You're still the person I've been getting to know? Not just the CEO?" Liam's eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "I'm still me," he said, his voice steady now. "The money and the title don't define who I am. I may run a company, but I'm not defined by it. And I've been trying to find someone who sees me for who I really am, not what I have. And you've seen me. You've seen me in a way no one else has." Emma felt a rush of relief wash over her. It wasn't about his wealth. It wasn't about his status. It was about the way he made her feel, the way he had treated her from the very beginning, like she was enough, like she mattered. Maybe it wasn't about fitting into his world. Maybe it was about finding someone who could understand her world. She took a deep breath, her fingers brushing against the edge of her cup. "I don't know what to do with all of this," she admitted, her voice quiet but honest. "It's a lot to process, Liam. I don't know if I'm ready to be part of your world. I've spent so much time just trying to survive, trying to make ends meet. And now, everything has changed." Liam reached across the table, his hand gently resting over hers. "You don't have to be ready right now," he said softly. "Take all the time you need. I'm not asking you to jump into anything. I just wanted you to know the truth. And I wanted you to know that I care about you, not because of who I am or what I have, but because of who you are." Emma looked down at their hands, the warmth of his touch grounding her in that moment. She had spent so much time building walls, pushing people away, afraid of being hurt or abandoned. But Liam wasn't like the others. He wasn't asking for anything in return. He just wanted to be honest, just wanted her to see him for who he truly was. She felt a tear slip down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away, embarrassed. I've never had anyone be this honest with me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's hard for me to believe that someone like you would want someone like me. I don't have the answers. I don't have it all figured out. And I'm not sure if I'm ready for this kind of change." Liam smiled gently, his thumb brushing against the back of her hand. "You don't have to have everything figured out," he said. "I don't either. We're both just trying to figure it out, one day at a time." Emma nodded slowly, taking in his words. She wasn't sure where this journey would take her, or where it would take them. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was on the right path. She didn't have to be perfect. She didn't have to have everything under control. Maybe it was okay to just be herself, to take things one step at a time. As they sat there together, the quiet hum of the cafe surrounding them, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Maybe this was the beginning of something real, something worth fighting for. And for the first time, she felt ready to take that leap. They didn't have all the answers yet, but they didn't need to. All they needed was to trust each other. And in that moment, Emma knew that was enough. The days after their conversation were both unsettling and comforting for Emma. As much as she had tried to move forward, the truth Liam had shared with her kept lingering in her mind. She couldn't shake the idea that her life had shifted, and she wasn't sure how to process everything that had happened. It had been a week since they had talked, and every time they met, it felt like a new chapter was opening in her life, but one she wasn't entirely ready to write. Liam had been patient, understanding, and kind, but Emma couldn't ignore the growing sense of doubt that kept creeping in. She had always been someone who kept her distance, who stayed in control. And now, for the first time, she was beginning to feel vulnerable. She had asked for space, and Liam respected that. But each time she saw him, the connection between them deepened, and she felt herself being drawn closer to him, not just by his charm, but by his genuine care. One night, after work, Emma found herself sitting on the small balcony of her apartment, staring out at the city lights below. She hadn't expected to be here, to be contemplating her feelings for someone who had so much more than she did. The life they had started to build together felt like it was moving too fast, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Just then, her phone buzzed. She picked it up to find a message from Liam. Asterisk. Hey Emma, I hope you're doing okay. I just wanted to check in. If you're ready, I'd love to talk again. I know things have been complicated, but I'm here whenever you're ready. No pressure. Just want you to know I'm thinking of you. Asterisk. The message, simple as it was, hit Emma harder than she expected. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the way he respected her boundaries. The way he was giving her space while still showing that he cared. Maybe it was time to stop running. Time to face the truth and take a leap of faith. She took a deep breath and quickly typed back. Asterisk. I'm ready. Let's talk. Asterisk. The next day, they met at the same cafe, a place that had become special to them both. As she walked in, she saw Liam sitting by the window, his familiar smile lighting up his face as he looked up at her. There was no hesitation this time, no uncertainty. He stood up, as he always did, to greet her, and for a moment, everything felt normal, comfortable. Hey, Emma, Liam said softly, his voice warm. I'm glad you came. She smiled, her heart still racing a little. But this time, she wasn't afraid. Me too, she replied, her voice steady. They sat down and spent the next few minutes exchanging small talk. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment when everything would change again. The moment when she would finally have to decide what she wanted, not just from Liam, but from herself. Finally, Liam broke the silence. I've been thinking a lot about us, he said, his tone serious but gentle. And I want to be honest with you. I can't promise that everything will be easy, but I do promise that I'll always be here, and that I'll never take you for granted. Emma looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time she felt truly seen. Not because of his wealth or his title, but because of the person he was. I don't know if I'm ready for everything, Liam, she said, her voice soft but clear. But I do know that I care about you. I just need to take this one step at a time. Liam smiled, his eyes filled with understanding. I get it, he said, and I'm here. No matter what, we'll take it slow, and we'll figure it out together. One day at a time. The weight that had been pressing on Emma's chest for the past few days began to lift. She didn't have to have everything figured out right now, and she didn't need to have all the answers. She just needed to trust herself, trust Liam, and take that first step forward. After they finished their coffee, they stood up together, and as they walked out of the cafe, Liam took her hand in his. Emma didn't pull away this time. Instead, she squeezed his hand gently, feeling the warmth of his touch, the quiet assurance that, maybe for the first time, everything was going to be okay. They walked together into the cool evening, the city lights sparkling around them. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. She didn't have all the answers, but she was no longer afraid of finding them. One step at a time, she was going to walk this path with Liam. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly living, not just surviving. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. Weeks passed since that night at the cafe, and as the days slipped by, Emma found herself slipping further into a comfortable rhythm with Liam. It was strange at first, getting used to the fact that she wasn't alone in this world anymore, that there was someone who genuinely cared about her and her dreams. It wasn't easy for her to admit, but she had spent so long convincing herself that she didn't need anyone, that she was better off on her own. But Liam had shown her a different way of being, a way of sharing, of trusting, and of loving. It was exactly the kind of love she had been too afraid to accept for so long. They spent more time together, in ways that felt natural, not rushed. Each time they met, the bond between them grew stronger. They laughed over dinner, took walks through the park, and even shared their deepest fears and vulnerabilities. Liam would listen intently, never once making her feel small for what she felt. She had never been able to talk to anyone like this before, not even to Jenny. There was something about Liam's presence that made her feel safe, as if the whole world outside didn't matter when they were together. But with that comfort came moments of doubt. Emma still wasn't fully convinced that this was real. She had been hurt before, and the thought of letting herself fall completely terrified her. Was it too good to be true? Was this just a fantasy that would eventually fall apart? She pushed those thoughts aside whenever they crept in. Instead, she focused on the moments that made her smile, the way Liam's eyes lit up when they talked about their future, the way his hand felt in hers, strong and steady. But even though she was starting to believe in what they had, there was still one thing that lingered in the back of her mind. The truth about Liam's world, his business, and the life that came with it. She had never truly understood what it meant to be with someone like him. The wealth, the power, the responsibilities, they were all part of his life, and she was starting to wonder how long she could keep pretending she was comfortable with it. They had avoided talking about it in detail, but it was always there, hanging in the air like an unspoken word. One evening, after a quiet dinner at his apartment, Liam asked her to join him for a charity gala. "It's for a cause I care about," he said, his voice gentle but persuasive. "It would mean a lot to me if you came. It's not just about the event, but about sharing something important with you." Emma hesitated. She had never been to a gala before, never been part of that world. She wasn't sure if she was ready to walk into a room full of people who lived in a world she couldn't even begin to understand. But then she saw the sincerity in Liam's eyes, the way he was asking her, not as a formality, but because he wanted her there. She knew that she couldn't keep avoiding it. If she was going to be with him, she needed to step into his world, just as he had stepped into hers. "I'll go," she said, her voice more confident than she felt. Liam smiled and kissed her hand gently. "Thank you," he whispered. The night of the gala, Emma stood in front of the full-length mirror, adjusting the strap of her dress. She had borrowed something elegant from a boutique, but it still felt too fancy, too out of place for her. She ran her fingers through her hair, trying to calm the nerves that were threatening to overwhelm her. She had never felt more out of place in her life. But when she arrived at the gala, all her fears seemed to fade the moment she saw Liam. He was standing by the door, looking every bit the part of the powerful CEO he was. But when he saw her, his face softened, and he immediately walked toward her, his arms open. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice full of admiration. Emma blushed, feeling both out of place and completely seen in the same moment. "I'm nervous," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam took her hand and squeezed it. "You're exactly where you need to be," he reassured her, his gaze steady and comforting. As they entered the gala, Emma couldn't help but feel like she was in a dream. The grand ballroom was full of people in elegant attire, their laughter and conversation a blur of voices in the background. She felt like an outsider, but Liam was by her side, guiding her through it all. He introduced her to a few people, and despite her nerves, she found herself laughing and engaging in conversations. It wasn't easy, but she could see the way people looked at Liam, with respect, admiration, and even a little awe. She knew that this was his world, but as the night wore on, she began to realize that maybe it wasn't so different from hers after all. She might not have the wealth or the status, but she had something just as valuable: the ability to be present, to connect, and to love. As the night came to a close, Liam walked her to the exit, his hand still holding hers tightly. "Thank you for being here with me tonight," he said quietly. It means everything to me. Emma smiled, feeling her heart warm at his words. I'm glad I came, she said softly, looking up at him. I think I'm finally starting to understand why this is so important to you. Liam looked down at her, his expression softening. It's not about the money or the fame, he said. It's about making a difference, about being part of something bigger. And I want you to be a part of that with me. Emma felt a surge of warmth in her chest. She had never understood that kind of world. But now, with Liam by her side, she was starting to see it in a new light. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to embrace all of it. Together, the days following the gala were filled with a sense of quiet reflection for Emma. She had never imagined herself in that world, surrounded by people with so much wealth and influence. But something had changed that night. She had stepped into Liam's world and, surprisingly, she didn't feel completely out of place. She had found her footing, not because she had suddenly become part of that elite circle, but because she realized that the love and connection they shared had nothing to do with status or money. It was real, and that was enough. Liam, on the other hand, was still as steady and present as ever. He continued to make her feel valued, loved, and seen. But Emma knew there were still pieces of his life that remained unexplored, aspects of his world she had yet to fully understand. There were moments when she could sense that there was something heavy on his mind. But he never spoke of it. Emma didn't press him. Not yet, unsure if she was ready to hear whatever it was that seemed to weigh him down. But as the days passed, she started to wonder if he, too, was holding something back. One evening, after a quiet dinner at her apartment, Emma found herself lost in thought, gazing out the window at the city lights. She had been talking to Liam about her dreams of opening an art studio, sharing her vision for the future, but as she looked back at him, there was a quiet sadness in his eyes. It was fleeting, but Emma caught it. She had been so focused on her own fears and doubts that she hadn't asked him about his. She had never really pressed him to share more about his life, his business, or the things that made him who he was. It wasn't that she didn't care, but she didn't want to push him if he wasn't ready. That evening, as they sat together, the weight of silence between them felt heavier than it had before. Liam wasn't speaking as much, and Emma could tell something was on his mind. She decided that maybe it was time to break the quiet, to ask him what was bothering him. Liam, she said softly, her voice gentle but firm, is there something you're not telling me? I feel like there's something you're holding back. Liam paused, his gaze shifting away for a moment. He looked down at his hands, his fingers lightly tapping the edge of his glass. The hesitation in his expression told Emma everything she needed to know. He was struggling with something that he couldn't quite put into words. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet, but heavy with emotion. There's something I've been meaning to tell you, he said, his voice tinged with regret. Something I've been avoiding because I don't want it to change anything between us. Emma leaned forward, her heart racing. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew that whatever it was, she needed to hear it. You can tell me anything, Liam, she said, her voice soft but filled with trust. You know that. He nodded, his eyes meeting hers, filled with a mix of vulnerability and fear. The truth is, Emma, he began, I've been struggling with the decision for a long time. My company, Parker Enterprises, is in the middle of a huge merger, and it's taken up all my time. But it's more than that. The deal isn't just about business. It's personal. It's tied to a legacy, to my family's name, and it's tearing me apart. Emma sat there, her breath caught in her throat. She had always known that his life was complicated, but hearing him speak so openly about the pressure he was under made her realize just how heavy it must be. What does that mean for us? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes filled with regret. I don't want this to affect us, but I can't keep ignoring the reality of the situation. If the merger goes through, it'll change everything for me. It could change how I see myself, how I see my family, and even how I see my future. He paused for a moment, his hands gripping the glass tightly, as if he were trying to hold onto something steady. And I don't want to drag you into it. You deserve more than that. You deserve someone who can give you all of themselves, without holding anything back. Emma felt a wave of emotion flood over her. She had never seen Liam like this. So vulnerable, so unsure of himself. She reached across the table, gently placing her hand on his. Liam, I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to have it all figured out. I just need you to be honest with me. And you are. That's all I've ever wanted. Liam looked up at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and something else relief, as if he had finally let go of something that had been weighing on him for far too long. You're not scared? He asked, his voice soft. Emma shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. No, I'm not scared. I'm here. With you. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. Liam squeezed her hand, his smile returning. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like they were on the same page. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that, as long as they had each other, they could face anything. The uncertainty that had been hanging over her heart seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet confidence in their relationship. It wasn't about the company or the money. It was about their connection, their trust, and their love for each other. And for Emma, that was more than enough. As the weeks went by, Emma and Liam's relationship grew stronger, and the connection between them deepened. They spent more time together, sharing quiet evenings, walks through the city, and conversations that lasted late into the night. It wasn't always easy. Emma still had her doubts, still questioned whether this would last. But there was something in the way Liam looked at her, something in his smile, that made her believe in what they had. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was more than enough for her. They were navigating through life together, each with their own fears, insecurities, and dreams. But somehow, their love seemed to transcend all of it. Liam had been open about the pressures he was facing with the merger and his family's expectations. But Emma knew that he was doing everything he could to keep their relationship intact. She had seen glimpses of the man he truly was, the one who cared deeply for her, the one who wanted to build something meaningful with her. And it was that man she chose to trust. Despite the constant buzz of his professional life, Liam made sure to create space for them. They planned small getaways, quiet moments away from the world, where they could simply be themselves, without the pressures of his business or her fears. It was in those moments, away from the chaos of their lives, that Emma realized just how much she had come to rely on him. She had never let herself be this vulnerable before. But with Liam, it felt natural. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of his penthouse, the city lights twinkling below them, Liam turned to her, a look of determination in his eyes. I've been thinking, he said, his voice calm yet serious. I don't want to keep waiting for everything to be perfect. I know the merger is still happening. And I know we don't have everything figured out yet, but I don't want to put our lives on hold. I don't want to keep waiting for the right moment. I want to take the next step with you, Emma. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say anything like this. Not so soon. She had been expecting him to focus more on the merger, to pull away as the pressure mounted. But instead, he was looking at her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't before. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling slightly, unsure of what he was about to say. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring, the diamond catching the light from the city below. I want to marry you, Emma, he said, his voice steady, but his eyes full of hope. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, no matter what happens. I know it's not easy, and I know we don't have all the answers, but I believe in us. I believe in what we've built, and I want to build a future with you. Emma sat there, stunned, her mind racing. This was the moment she had always dreamed of, the moment she had always hoped for. But now that it was here, she felt overwhelmed. She had never been the type to jump into things. never the type to make huge decisions quickly. But as she looked at the ring, and then at Liam, she realized that this wasn't a decision she had to make alone. This was about them, about what they wanted together. She had come so far in this relationship, had opened herself up in ways she never thought possible. And here was Liam, offering her a chance at a future that felt more real than anything she had ever imagined. She looked at him, her heart full of emotion, and smiled. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, I will marry you." Liam's face lit up, and without a second thought, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt completely at peace. The fear, the doubt, the uncertainty that had been hanging over her for so long seemed to fade away. She had made the decision. She had chosen him, and in that moment, she knew that their love, their connection, was the only thing that truly mattered. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that they had both come a long way, through their fears and insecurities. And now, they were ready to face whatever came next, together. As the weeks went by, Emma and Liam's relationship grew stronger, and the connection between them deepened. They spent more time together, sharing quiet evenings, walks through the city, and conversations that lasted late into the night. It wasn't always easy. Emma still had her doubts, still questioned whether this would last. But there was something in the way Liam looked at her, something in his smile, that made her believe in what they had. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was more than enough for her. They were navigating through life together, each with their own fears, insecurities, and dreams, but somehow, their love seemed to transcend all of it. Liam had been open about the pressures he was facing with the merger and his family's expectations, but Emma knew that he was doing everything he could to keep their relationship intact. She had seen glimpses of the man he truly was, the one who cared deeply for her, the one who wanted to build something meaningful with her. And it was that man she chose to trust. Despite the constant buzz of his professional life, Liam made sure to create space for them. They planned small getaways, quiet moments away from the world, where they could simply be themselves, without the pressures of his business or her fears. It was in those moments, away from the chaos of their lives, that Emma realized just how much she had come to rely on him. She had never let herself be this vulnerable before. But with Liam, it felt natural. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of his penthouse, the city lights twinkling below them, Liam turned to her, a look of determination in his eyes. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice calm yet serious. "I don't want to keep waiting for everything to be perfect. I know the merger is still happening, and I know we don't have everything figured out yet. But I don't want to put our lives on hold. I don't want to keep waiting for the right moment. I want to take the next step with you, Emma." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say anything like this, not so soon. She had been expecting him to focus more on the merger, to pull away as the pressure mounted. But instead, he was looking at her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't before. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, unsure of what he was about to say. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring, the diamond catching the light from the city below. I want to marry you, Emma," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes full of hope. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, no matter what happens. I know it's not easy, and I know we don't have all the answers, but I believe in us. I believe in what we've built, and I want to build a future with you." Emma sat there, stunned, her mind racing. This was the moment she had always dreamed of, the moment she had always hoped for. But now that it was here, she felt overwhelmed. She had never been the type to jump into things, never the type to make huge decisions quickly. But as she looked at the ring, and then at Liam, she realized that this wasn't a decision she had to make alone. This was about them, about what they wanted together. She had come so far in this relationship, had opened herself up in ways she never thought possible. And here was Liam, offering her a chance at a future that felt more real than anything she had ever imagined. She looked at him, her heart full of emotion, and smiled. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, I will marry you. Liam's face lit up, and without a second thought, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt completely at peace. The fear, the doubt, the uncertainty that had been hanging over her for so long seemed to fade away. She had made the decision. She had chosen him. And in that moment, she knew that their love, their connection, was the only thing that truly mattered. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that they had both come a long way, through their fears and insecurities, and now they were ready to face whatever came next, together.